Hello, guys. My name is Desmond, and I welcome you to my YouTube channel. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all the best with your exams, and I hope all these lessons that we've been doing are going to add value to your exams. Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, I think it would be best to firstly indicate that it's very much important that I say it's very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, because what I'm about to say is massively important, okay? Guys, please do make sure that you learn something new on a daily basis, okay? So, in short, ladies and gentlemen, please do make sure that by the end of each and every lesson that I do, you learn something new. Okay, very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. So, for today's lesson, it's not really to solve any exam related questions, but it's just to go through this question paper of November 2020. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do in this lesson, I'm just going to go through the instructions and information given in the question paper, go through the chapters that we have done during our live online lessons. As far as I remember, we've done question 1, which involves more of solve for X. We've also done a sequencing series, and again we've also done functions. So there are more chapters that we have done in this paper 1 and also for paper 2. So obviously, because some of you discovered me not so long ago, and again, I think this channel is about let me see, I think it's about 3 months old, so I haven't covered all the chapters, but I made sure to invest much of my time in the chapters which I know they are given a lot of marks. And again, I knew that if we can emphasize these particular chapters, you'll be able to score a lot of marks, which will enable you to pass with good marks. So in case if you're watching this lesson and you're in grade 10 and 11, please do make sure that next year we become good friends, because I think that's when I'll be having enough time to do most of the chapters which I haven't covered for this year. But one thing for sure, ladies and gentlemen, I've noticed some of you you really appreciate this information that I'm giving to you guys, and it makes me happy when I get feedback where some of the learners indicate that they fully understand. It gives me the energy to continue creating more content, because it doesn't help for me to continue creating more lessons, more videos, whereas I'm confusing you guys. But from what I've heard so far, this information is valuable, and my lessons are easy to understand. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very much happy that you find these lessons valuable. So, without any waste of time, ladies and gentlemen, this type of exercise that we're going to do now, you shouldn't be doing this in an exam room where you need to understand all of these instructions and information which is provided. So make sure that at all times when you treat past exam papers, you read through these instructions and information. Okay, so it helps you to not worry a lot about these instructions and information when they are read out in exam room, because you already know what they mean, and again you fully understand what they mean. Okay, so we're just quickly going to go through information and instruction. So I just chose last year's question paper of mathematics, because I assume even if they make some changes this year, might not be big changes as compared to going through a question paper of 2010 or 2009, because a lot has changed. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't necessarily mean that the paper that you'll be writing tomorrow, it will be exactly the same as the information on this question paper. One thing for sure, I think they read all of this information when they hand out the question papers. But what we're going to do is to go through all of this, and then when we're done, we'll do we'll just discuss those sections that I've indicated when I started with this lesson. So ladies and gentlemen, instructions and information. Remember guys, in case if you are not able to clearly see on the screen of my tablet, I've posted this question paper on my Telegram, so you can easily access it there. But otherwise, if you don't have a Telegram account, you can just drop me a WhatsApp text. I'm sure most of you guys have got my WhatsApp number. You can just drop me a WhatsApp text, and then when I go through the WhatsApp text, I'll just forward you this question paper so that you can go through all this information that I'm talking about. In case if you're not able to see on the screen of my tablet, please do make sure to stay with me until the end, because I might provide a valuable information which will help you, to avoid losing some obvious marks. Okay. And most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, this lesson, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's only valid for exam that you're going to write tomorrow, but most importantly, it should be valid up until, it should be valid for the next at least 5 years. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, read the following instructions carefully before answering the questions. Okay. So during our times, they used to read all of these instructions. So I'm not really sure if they just hand out the question papers and it remains your responsibility to read all of these instructions. But otherwise, if they do, then it's a bonus. As soon as they start, they say you can start, straight away you go to the question paper. Okay. So just make sure that you are aware of some of the obvious instructions. Number one, they say this question paper consists of 11 questions. Okay. Very, 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 very much important, ladies and gentlemen. Why is it very much important that they tell you how many questions are in the question paper? It's because, ladies and gentlemen, for some reason, if your question paper has only 9 questions, then you should raise your hand and bring it to the invigilator's attention that they say this question paper consists of 11 questions, but your question paper has got 9 questions. Okay, because if you don't raise it, then it means you might not be writing a question which is out of 150. So it might complicate some things in relation to your answer sheet. So because obviously if you only answer 9 questions, if you answer 9 questions, at the marking center will just assume that it was your decision to just answer 9 questions. We won't easily be able to notice that maybe there was something wrong with your question paper. Okay, so that's why I'm saying it's very much important that you raise your hand, you bring it to your teacher's attention, and then they should be able to assist you. In case if on the information instructions it says this question paper consists of maybe 14 questions, but then yours only has 5 questions. Okay, I hope you understand that part, ladies and gentlemen. So that is the importance of always confirming that a question paper consists of all of those questions. So the moment they read that first information or instruction, you quickly check if your question paper has got that number of questions indicated there. Okay, so that's why number 2, they say answer all the questions. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, to be on a safe side, please do make sure that you answer all the questions. Okay, I know it happens to most of us that you find that you've practiced, but then you haven't covered all the chapters. And I know in some schools you might find that especially during these times of COVID, you might find that maybe you are late with your syllabus, you haven't covered all the chapters. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't covered chapter 8, not necessarily chapter 8, but you haven't covered a chapter which is in question 8, do not just keep that question, ladies and gentlemen. You might find that with the information that you have accumulated throughout the year, you can easily apply your mind to tackle that particular question. Okay, it's very, very much important that you read to understand the question. Okay, so do not leave any questions, ladies and gentlemen. Try by all means to answer all the questions. That's why we provide this type of lessons where we assume that in case if you're struggling with a particular chapter, you can refer to our channel, go through that chapter, and only consult with your teacher, your mentor, or your tutor for additional information. Okay, because one thing for sure, us as online tutors and again teachers, mentors, and whoever, they may not cover everything regarding a particular chapter. And again, some of us, we understand better when things are explained by different people, because we can then gather all the information and write down the notes in a simplified manner. Okay, number 3, ladies and gentlemen, number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in this question paper. Ladies and gentlemen, very, very much important that you take this instruction seriously. Number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in this question paper. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, if if there's a question which is question number 1, you've got question 1.1, maybe you've got question 1.2, then you have number 2, you have 2.1. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you as the instruction says, you number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in this question paper. Okay, do not for some reason be lazy to write 1.1 and just say question 1, and then when you get there you just say 2, and only when you do question 2 then you say okay 2.1, just because you realize if you say 2 it seems as if it's 2 and 2, then you just decide to follow the numbering system when you get to that question. Ladies and gentlemen, you might lose some marks because of that. Okay, because we are not sure if you are answering a question paper that you crammed last night when you're practicing, or we are not sure if you're answering the question paper of that examination. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, please do make sure that you use the numbering system. If it's question number 1, just write question number 1, provide the answer. If it's question number 2, just write question number 2 and provide the answer. Okay, it obviously depends on the question. So it's very much important, ladies and gentlemen, that you number your answers correctly according to the numbering system used in that particular question paper. Okay, very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. Number 4, clearly show all calculations, diagrams, graphs, etc., ladies and gentlemen, that you have used in determining your answer. Okay, your answer or your answers. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very much important that at all times you clearly show your answers. Okay, because in some instances you might be requested to perform some calculations. And obviously, especially when it comes to inequalities, where you might need to draw your critical values on a number line. Ladies and gentlemen, please do make sure that you clearly, please make sure that you clearly show all calculations. If you're requested to perform some calculations, clearly show the diagrams, clearly show the graphs, and any additional information that they may request from you. Okay, for example, ladies and gentlemen, on this one, if you've got your inequalities and you've got your graph, let's say maybe you draw something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm answering a specific question, but in short, if you're saying this is 2, that point is 2, and let's say this point is 4, ladies and gentlemen, and you make that line there to indicate that this is 2, this is 4. Do not, for some reason, just write 2 and 4 there, and now somehow your graph, you draw your graph, but it's cutting that point there and there. So can you see, ladies and gentlemen, your critical values is 2 and 4, but the graph that you draw, it's not touching these points. Okay, so now we are not sure if ladies and gentlemen, you just didn't know what you were doing, or it's a mistake or whatever. Okay, try to clearly make sure that all the information that you provide is clear and straightforward. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there are some times where you just do something like this, ladies and gentlemen, where you just do something like this. Okay, let me see. Okay, so guys, what is this? What is this, ladies and gentlemen? Because at the marking center, I'm just seeing lines, nameless lines. Okay, guys, it's very, very much important that you clearly you clearly show your diagrams, your graphs, or whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, I think if I can just add some information to what I've explained in relation to this diagram there, I think if I can just explain more, it will make sense. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm seeing here is just a straight line, which could be a straight line graph, which could be a y-axis. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just seeing a horizontal line over there, which could be x-axis, which could be a straight line. Okay, so what they mean when they say clearly show the diagrams, the graphs, etc. Listen, if this is a y-axis, guys, please indicate to say this is the y-axis. Okay, so that we know it's not a straight line. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this line indicate clearly that this is the x-axis. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. If this is a parabola, guys, if this is a parabola, give it a name. Is it the graph of f? Is it the graph of g? Is it h of x? Whatever that it is, if it's y, ladies and gentlemen, please do make sure that you clearly indicate that this is your graph of f. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if this is a straight line and it's the graph of g, okay, guys, please do make sure that you clearly indicate what happens with the diagram that you drew. Okay, we shouldn't be stressing much about this type of information, because obviously, ladies and gentlemen, just so that you can feel what I'm talking about, you can have something like this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this could mean a lot of things to myself. Let me just do something like this, ladies and gentlemen. This thing could mean a lot of things. Okay, so it seems as if it's a hash. At the same time, you might find that in your mind you drew two straight line graphs. How is it two straight line graphs, ladies and gentlemen? You might find that between these two lines, one of them is your x-axis, one of them is your a straight line graph. Your y-axis, your straight line graph. So how do we know which one is a graph, which one is the axis? Okay, so you should clearly indicate if this is the axis, just say x-axis, and then no, the y-axis. If it's the x-axis, just say the x-axis. Okay, if it's the graph, ladies and gentlemen, is it the graph of G, is it the graph of F, whatever that it is? Okay, is it the graph of H or the graph of F? Ladies and gentlemen, label so that we are able to differentiate. Then we know, okay, this is the origin. This is the origin, that point there. Okay, so this could be maybe -2, that point over there. Obviously, we know this is also a negative number. It could be -3. Okay, then that means the equation for that straight line graph, it's f of x, which is equals to what is it, ladies and gentlemen? Whatever that it is, I hope the what is it, the gradient? The gradient, obviously, it's, what is it? Is it 1 or is it 0? I'm not really sure in terms of how I can give an equation for that one, but you might find that this is the equation of f of x, which means obviously y is equals to 0, then it's just x is equals to -2. Okay, so that one, if it's a straight line, then you know y is equals to, touches at minus what is it, -3. So you've got that horizontal line which represents y is equals to -3. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, it's very much important here. Remember guys, I'm just giving you an example to say, in case if there's a question that needs you to draw the graphs, please do make sure that you pay full attention. Okay, so do not just draw some lines and not label anything. Okay, so I hope you guys, you fully understand what I'm trying to say over there. So ladies and gentlemen, where are we? I think we are now on instruction number 5. They say answers answers only will not necessarily be awarded full marks. Okay, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, very much important. You remember guys, in case if you are given a quadratic equation, let's say +7, remember this is just an example, ladies and gentlemen, because you are too smart, ladies and gentlemen, because you are too smart, you have done a lot of this type of questions and you're running out of time. You just notice that you've spent a lot of time on some of the questions and they just said 5 minutes left. Then because you're smart, ladies and gentlemen, what you do, you just quickly factorize. Let's say these are the factors where you've got x, it's equals to, okay, let me just say 100, or maybe x, it's equals to -30. Okay, so assuming that this question was allocated 4 marks, ladies and gentlemen, so because you are running out of time, you just quickly know the factors, then you just write these final answers. So what they mean, ladies and gentlemen, what they mean, you might find that these are the correct numbers, but because you've just provided the final answers, you might find that these 2x values are only allocated 1 mark, and some of the other marks are allocated on the steps in between. Maybe the factorization is also allocated maybe some marks, you know what I mean, just as an example, ladies and gentlemen. So that means you lose 3 marks and you only score 1 mark because you didn't show the steps in between. So that's what they mean when they say answers only will not necessarily be awarded full marks. So not because you got your answers correctly, then it means you'll be allocated 4 marks. Okay, there's a criteria that we use when we allocate marks. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, it's very much important that you show all the steps. So the reason why when I do my lessons, I mark the questions that I solve or answer. It's because I want you to notice exactly where you score some marks. Just in case if you are in a rush, ladies and gentlemen, and you need to quickly answer that question where you are remaining with, let's say, less than 5 minutes, then you know which steps are allocated marks. Then instead of you having to show each and every step when you simplify, you know exactly which steps are allocated marks. So that's why at all times I should make sure that after each and every question that I solve, I mark that particular question. Okay, very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you understand that part. Number 6, you may use an approved scientific calculator, non-programmable and non-graphical, unless otherwise stated. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously, I don't think if you've been using, for example, Casio or a Sharp calculator, since you're grade 10, you might bring something new in your final exams. Okay, so in case if you are not sure if the calculator that you're using is it's an approved scientific calculator, you can just confirm with your teacher to ask them if you will be allowed to use that particular calculator. Okay, very, very much important, ladies. Very, 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 very much importantly, make sure that your calculator is in degrees, because in case, ladies and gentlemen, in case where you've got your y-axis over there and your x-axis over there, and they want you to calculate that angle, ladies and gentlemen, if your calculator is not in degrees, I'm not sure if it's grade or it's red or whatever that it is, ladies and gentlemen, you might find incorrect answers. Okay, so for example, in case if they want you to calculate the gradient of that line and you find that all the upcoming questions will depend on your gradient being correct, that means all of these answers are most likely to be wrong, ladies and gentlemen. So if the whole of this question is allocated, let's say 15 marks in total, and the first question they wanted you to calculate the gradient, and because your calculator was not in degrees, you calculated an angle of which it didn't make sense, guys, you are in trouble. Okay, that's why in most of my lessons, especially after drawing a straight line graph like that, I always mention that it's a positive gradient that you must get. If you had maybe a straight line graph in that direction, then it means it's a negative gradient that you must get. So in case if, let's say for instance, the straight line is drawn in that direction and you find a negative gradient, then in my case I would remember that something is not right. Then I'll check if my calculator is in degrees. Okay, remember, ladies and gentlemen, tan theta is equals to m. Okay, so if that angle you get it incorrect as a result of your calculator not being in degrees, then you are in big trouble. Okay, guys, we used to remind each other when we go write exams to say, please make sure that your calculator is in degrees. So just at all times get used to reminding with each other, because if you don't, sometimes you forget, you know what I mean, or for some reason someone changes it, or for some reasons maybe your calculator is there and there's a kid at home, they just press and they change the settings, then might be a serious problem. Okay, especially for paper 2, make sure that your calculator is in degrees. Ladies and gentlemen, if necessary, round off answers to 2 decimal places unless otherwise stated. Okay, especially for that question where you need to use this formula, ladies and gentlemen, this formula of quadratic formula minus 4ac all over 2a. You know, in brackets sometimes they say correct to whatever decimal places. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, in case if you are not given this information, what they simply mean is that if you use this formula and you get maybe a decimal number, ladies and gentlemen, okay, correct it to a or round off to two decimal places, okay, unless otherwise stated. That's if they say correct to one decimal place, then that's when you can correct it to one decimal place. Okay, so it's not at all the times where they will say correct to two decimal places. It's not at all the times where they will say correct to one decimal places, and most importantly, it's not at all the times where they are going to specify a to what decimal places you should round off to that particular decimal place. So in case if they didn't specify, then this instruction becomes valid. Okay, hope you fully understand that part, ladies and gentlemen. So let's see, number 8, diagrams are not necessarily drawn to scale. Very, 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 very. Where's my other marking pen, ladies and gentlemen? I wanted, but it's fine. I'll just use this one. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a Cartesian plane, right? This is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. Okay, so let me just do maybe a drawing like that. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. And then from there, do something like that. And say, let's say this is 2. Let's say this is -2. And then for some reason, they give that point over there. Let's say maybe it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say this is 4, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say it's point P, and they say x is let's say 3 and 4. This is what I want to do, ladies and gentlemen. And you've got a point there, maybe let's say is point S. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I just want to understand to you what they mean, or why they need to tell you that diagrams are not necessarily drawn to scale. Okay, not to scale. The reason why they say that, ladies and gentlemen, is because some learners, if they say determine the coordinates of S, okay, instead of them performing calculations to show what is the coordinates of S, what they do, they just say, okay, if this is 0 and that point there is 4, then they try to use a ruler to measure and say there it could be 1, and there it could be 2, there it could be 3, and then make a conclusion to say, okay, S is actually halfway between that point and that point over there. That's why it suits maybe to be 2, not necessarily halfway, but yeah, halfway. Let's say they just assume that it's halfway. Okay, so they'll say S is where X is 0 and then Y it's 2. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, can you see you've just provided the final answer? Check over there, number 5. They say answers only will not necessarily be awarded marks. Okay, so this is what they mean when they say no, answers only will not necessarily be awarded full marks. You might find that even though that point, it looks as if it's midway between 0 and 4, okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that this graph is drawn to scale such that you can use a ruler to measure from there to there and conclude that it's halfway between 0 and 4. Okay, so you must perform calculations to show that that point S is 0 and 2. In some instances, you might find that that point over there, it's not 2, but instead it's 2, 5. Or maybe it could be 2 comma 1 or 1 comma 8. Whatever the case may be, ladies and gentlemen, it's very much important that you don't just use a ruler to estimate some points. For example, again, let's say maybe that point they just said it's x over there. Okay, do not assume that because here is 2, then there it suits to be 3. Okay, that's what they mean when they say diagrams are not necessarily drawn to scale. Therefore, you should not use a ruler to estimate the coordinates. Okay, perform calculations to show how you arrive at your final answers. Ladies and gentlemen, number 9, an information sheet with formulae. It's included at the end of the question paper. Okay, very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, that as soon as you read that information, you check if indeed the question paper is provided. Okay, because otherwise they just say it's provided but they don't give it to you, and because you're too shy, you don't ask. You just assume maybe for that year they are not providing question papers. Okay, so it remains your responsibility to make sure that what is written there is true. Okay, in case if the answer sheet is not provided, bring it to your invigilator's attention to say there they say information sheet with formula is included at the end of the question paper, but on my question paper it's not there. Okay, then you'll be assisted accordingly. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. Number 10, very, very much important. Guys, if my name is Desmond, can it be written neatly and legibly, ladies and gentlemen? Neatly and legibly. Okay, because I'm at the marking center, I've got a lot of answer sheet that I need to mark, and there your name is Desmond but you wrote something like this, ladies and gentlemen. How am I supposed to read this as Desmond? Very, very much important. It should be neatly and legibly. I should be able to see that, okay, this is D, this is E, this is S, M, O, N, D. Okay, very, very much important, ladies. Very, very much important. Okay, even if you're, let's say for instance, this was an English paper and you're writing correct answers, you're writing the facts, but for the fact that I cannot be able to read what you wrote over there, ladies and gentlemen, it becomes a bit difficult for me to give you some marks. Okay, because I'm not sure if it's, what is it that starts with a D and end with a D, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just not really sure of what happens there in between. Okay, so just make sure that whatever that you write, after 50 years, if we can call you to read whatever that you wrote, you must be able to read it. Okay, so do not write something of which if I call you after 30 years and say, what did you write there? Then you start scratching your head to say, I was still a child that time. I wanted to just practice doctor's handwritings. Ladies and gentlemen, please do make sure that you don't write with doctor's handwritings. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. So now, guys, for now, what I want to talk about is solve for X related type of questions. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, please do make sure that, especially question 1, I think most of it's about solve for X. Okay, so please, ladies and gentlemen, please do make sure that you don't get confused. Please make sure that you score maximum marks. Okay, because otherwise you lose some obvious marks, ladies, and some easy marks. Okay, I've explained to you on yesterday's lessons in terms of how to approach solve for X related questions. And again, when it comes to simultaneous equations, guys, let me just write that one as an example over there, which is 2x plus 4xy, and what else, ladies and gentlemen, minus y, it's equals to 15. Okay, so this is equated to 3. So ladies and gentlemen, you'll most likely to be given equation 1 and equation 2. Okay, so you need to do equation 3. So I've just advised you, ladies and gentlemen, to say between these two equations, which one is complicated. Obviously, that one, it looks a bit complicated. That means you will derive equation 3 from equation 1. Okay, but now you need to decide whether to make x or y the subject of the formula. How do you decide? You check where you are going to substitute that equation 3. Okay, so you can see if you make x the subject of the formula, you're going to substitute it there and there. Okay, very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. But if you make y the subject of the formula, you're still going to substitute it 2 times. Okay, so now that whether you make x or y subject of the formula, you're going to substitute 2 times. Which one is better to make the subject of the formula? So now, if you make x, then you are going to have 2 into, then you expand that, then you multiply, then you still have that 2, then you still have to multiply. Okay, but if you make y the subject of the formula, you just substitute there. You've got 4x into, then minus into, then you just multiply, you are done. You multiply, you are done. Okay, so then you can see that it's better to make y the subject of the formula. Okay, then it means your y becomes 3 minus x. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, that you take into consideration this information, because in some instances you might find that you make the other term or the other number the subject of the formula, and then you get fractions as your equations. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, it's very much important that at all times you think about how your final answer will look like. Okay, as an example, ladies and gentlemen, as part of sequence and series, let me just have that series over there, which is something like that. And the question says, this is an arithmetic sequence. Determine the value of x and y. Ladies and gentlemen, do not panic. Just because 7 is a positive number, there it's positive, then you get confused when you see negative 11 over there. Okay, do not panic, ladies and gentlemen. You know this is term 1, you know this is term 2, you know this is term 3, you know this is term 4. Doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. And because they said it's an arithmetic sequence, that means you must have first CD. I'm not sure if you remember a lesson where I was explaining to you that first common difference, I call it first CD, in case if I'm dealing with an arithmetic sequence. Then you know how to get that first CD, ladies and gentlemen. This is term 1, this is term 2, this is term 3, this is term 4. Okay, you just know that is term 2 minus term 1, which is equals to term 4 minus term 3. Then you just substitute into that formula, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, then you solve whatever that you need to solve. So this is just as an example, ladies. It doesn't necessarily mean that that question it can only be solved in that way. Okay, it really depends on how the question is asked, and again it depends on what information you're given. Okay, let me check something, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say maybe there, if we substitute, then it's x minus 7, and we're actually saying this thing is equals to let's check. Since we said t4 minus t, where's t4? Substitute it as it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is t4 and this is minus t3. It's equals to y as your T3. Okay, and again, we know, ladies and gentlemen, this is still equals to a term 3 minus term 2. Okay, so in case, ladies and gentlemen, you need to substitute, you can just say this is term 3 minus term 2. I'm just showing you that substitute it as it is. Okay, then you can work out this portion in order to make maybe x subject of the formula, or to calculate whatever that you calculate, and then from there work out this portion. It really doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen. It depends on the information that you're given and how the questions are being asked. So what I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, is that please make sure that you understand what the information is, and again, you understand what the question wants you to do. Okay, so the other thing that I want to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, maybe let me just include the functions. Okay, I've just explained to you guys that for a parabola, this is the general equation: y is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so I've just indicated that a tells us more about the shape of the graph, whether it's going to be this shape or it's going to be let's say that shape. Okay, and then c tells us more about where that parabola cuts the y-axis. Okay, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, and the x-axis. Okay, so guys, obviously if your a is positive, that's when your a is greater than 0. Then you've got a smiling shape. Okay, you remember from yesterday's lesson. Otherwise, if you've got a negative a, then that means your a is less than 0. Obviously, when it's less than 0, it's negative a, which is a negative number. Okay, then you've got a sad shape. Okay, remember, ladies and gentlemen. So obviously, see, it's not that much complicated. It's straightforward. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, please do make sure that you are well aware of this type of information. Okay, and again, they like combining a parabola with a straight line. You need to then be able to differentiate which one is the graph of f, which one is the graph of g. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, at all times you should know that in case if for some reason they want you to calculate the distance, you must have 2 points. Doesn't really matter between which 2 points, you must just have from one point to another. Then you must have the coordinates of those 2 points in order to be able to calculate the distance from there to there using the distance formula. Okay, and remember guys, with regards to a straight line, if it's drawn like that, then your m must be positive. If it's drawn like that, then your m must be negative. Okay, very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. Please do make sure that you take into account this type of information. Okay, so the other thing, ladies and gentlemen, of which I think I must mention is that you've got, I think, y is equals to a into x. I think it's p squared plus q, where TP, which are the turning points, are represented by Q, P and Q. Okay, I just wanted you to understand that part, that the turning point can be somewhere there. Okay, and again, the turning points can be there, where that point is your C value, or it's at the same time the turning point. Okay, so what I mean, you might find that that value over there, it serves as the turning point at the same time. So that means a parabola can still turn right at a point where it intercepts the y-axis. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, the other thing that I think it's worth mentioning is the midpoint formula. Very much important that you are well aware of the midpoint formula, ladies and gentlemen. If you've got 2 points, let's say these 2 points up to there. Okay, so the midpoint formula helps you to calculate, you know, you just want to know the point between this line and that line. So this will be the x value of the midpoint, which is that point over there, and we obviously need to know you know, that point over there. So that's why the midpoint formula has got the x value and the y value. Okay, so it's very, very much important that you know the midpoint formula. And in most cases, I just want to quickly show you something, ladies and gentlemen. We're actually heading towards the end of this lesson. So let's say maybe you've got the y and the x-axis, then you've got a parabola like that. And again, let's say obviously you are given these turning points as 2 and let's say -4, and for some reason they say calculate maybe not necessarily calculate, let's say maybe they give you that point over there, assuming that it's -1. Okay, so obviously, ladies and gentlemen, you now have the midpoint you know, coordinates, the x value of the midpoint over there. You know there it's 2. Okay, if this point is P, you can use the midpoint formula to calculate that point over there, because you know the x value there, and again you know this is -1. Okay, so it's there you use the midpoint formula or you just use your common sense. Okay, so it doesn't really matter in terms of how you approach it, but ladies and gentlemen, what I'm trying to say is it doesn't necessarily mean that at all times they will give you these 2 points and expect you to calculate the midpoint. They might give you the midpoint value and the other point and expect you to calculate the other point. If you have watched yesterday's lesson, ladies and gentlemen, you should be well aware of what I'm talking about. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think at this point I can only wish you all the best, and please do make sure to drop me a WhatsApp text in case if there's something that you don't understand, you want to confirm, you're not sure. If you have done, ladies and gentlemen, the other thing, if you have done calculations and you send me what you have done, then it's very much easy for me to just go through what you have done. But if you say I'm struggling with, for example, solve for x, it's not easy for me to give you attention because I'm not sure in terms of the level of your understanding. I'm not sure if when I have to help you, I have to start with grade 9 lesson, grade 10 lesson, or grade grade 11 lesson. It's really a bit challenging for me. So if you perform some calculations, then I'm able to check what you've done. Then it tells me a bit more about the level of your understanding. Then I'm able to then know that, okay, at this stage, I think he's got a better understanding, but he just lacks some information there and there. Okay, unlike if you just say, I'm struggling with functions, then I'm not sure if you don't know, what is a Cartesian plane, if maybe you know, but you don't know how to find the points or whatever. Can you see, ladies and gentlemen? So I spent a lot of time that I could be spending on making these lessons by trying to teach you from scratch. So it's best if you watch the lessons that I've done, you try to redo them, and you send me what you've done. Then in that way, I can easily refer to the information that I provided to say, based on this and that, this is how you approach this question. It gives me more energy in case if you've watched my lesson and you didn't understand something. But so far, I've never got a question where someone says, you've done this, but I didn't understand, which is an indication to me that most of the lessons that I do, they are actually straightforward. You know what I mean? So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for for taking your time to join this lesson and listen to the advices that I'm providing. So, guys, I think this brings us to the end of our lesson for today. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Desmond, and I'm out.